good afternoon, Indiana. Happy Valentine's Day, lovers. Welcome to this special presentation of Mad Voters this week at the Indiana Statehouse. Today, I am joined by Amanda Eldridge from the Mad Voters Bill Track team. Welcome, Amanda. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you. Nice to be here today on this lovely Valentine's Day.
Big plans tonight?
Actually, yes, gonna go see the Revolutionaries.
Fantastic.
So let's celebrate with, I think, Marie Antoinette.
Yeah. Take notes.
No comment.
Yes. All right. So, with that, let's talk about a busy week at the Indiana State House this previous week and another busy week to come. We are getting on toward the end of the session. Boy, this thing has flown by, hasn't it?
Oh, it definitely has. That's, it traditionally it goes into March, but they really decided to shorten it to the end of February.
Yeah, and that has to do with the special session or whatever they called it in December with the failed redistricting gambit, attempting to redraw the congressional maps to benefit Republicans at the behest of President Trump, which failed, thankfully. But they did waste a lot of taxpayers' time and money engaging in all that, and left themselves a lot less time to perhaps deal with things that, I don't know, could improve our lives here in Indiana.
Yeah, we definitely, when we're watching, we hear them say we don't have a lot of time. It's like, well, we shortened the session, so
Yeah.
maybe next time we plan a little differently.
Yeah. Well, so I guess let's start for newcomers here. Let's tell folks a little bit about Mad Voters, what you guys do there, and talk about the bill tracker at your website a little bit.
Yeah, so Mad Voters, we are an Indiana nonprofit focused on empowering civic engagement and progressive values through state level education, outreach, and advocacy. We are local and volunteer powered. We aren't part of a national org, or we're not part of a political party, which is fantastic. So we can hold everybody accountable, which is a value that we hold dear. Now, our bill tracker, this thing is absolutely amazing. So our expanded bill tracker, which you can find at madvoters.org, it allows Hoosiers to follow along with the bills that we're tracking, view upcoming actions, see current bills, see a simplified bill explanation, because that legalese sometimes can sound really complicated, and how to contact legislators. So it's a really easy to use tool. We want to make it as accessible, which is why we've also included a mobile friendly view as well. And for those that really like the deep dives, we have an expanded spreadsheet. So yeah, and like you said, it's moving quickly, and our bills, they're moving quickly through the State House, and we just want to get Hoosiers to feel more empowered, to advocate for themselves and the issues that matter most by breaking down these barriers and making the process easier to understand.
Yeah, so let's situate ourselves a little bit here in terms of the session. Like we said, we're getting on near the end here, and bills have gone through committee. They've had their first reading, their second reading. They've I think at this point, everything's crossed over from one chamber to the other. That's going to. And then you repeat the process again, right? Stuff goes back into committee in the other chamber, goes through multiple readings before they take a vote. But some things are passing out of chamber and being sent to the governor at this point, aren't they?
I believe so. I think there are a few bills that have made it through the third reading. So it could go to the governor. Now, if the bill has had a lot of changes compared to so say there's a House bill that's made it to the Senate, and there's a lot of changes, it actually has to go back to the House to have them vote to see if they're okay with that bill. If it's not, then it will have a conference hearing where they will kind of hash it out.
Yeah, that's reconciliation, or is that what they call that? Yeah. So let's, I guess, then get into the meat of this thing. There's a lot to go through this week, as there has been the entire session. Like you said, this thing's flying through, and so they really flood the zone with some of these bills, and we have to pay attention. Pick out the important stuff. And we're going to talk about contentious bills a lot today. but there are a lot of bipartisan kind of I don't want to say unimportant because they're all important, but things that are not as contentious that have a lot of consensus that things do get done on a sort of bipartisan basis. And I guess I don't want to minimize that there is a fair amount of that goes on that isn't as sexy, and we don't.
Yeah, that's fair.
But let's get into the sexy stuff, I guess, and talk about the some of the bills that are up in potentially have a committee hearing this week, or it's an important choke point in the process, right? Where a committee chairperson or this small group of legislators outside of the entire chamber can have an influence on a bill. They can make or break things right there in the committee room, and so we've got a few of those that we want to highlight here right now. And I want to start with House Bill 1001. That is the Republican supermajority's priority bill. They had a couple of them, but 1001 as 01 is their top priority this session. And MADVoters, you guys didn't really take a position on this one. A lot of your graphics on the website, they're a clear thumbs up or thumbs down. We oppose this bill. We support this bill. This one was like, yeah, we'll see what happens as the amendment process goes by. So where is 1001 right?
So I know for when it comes to bills that MADVoters watch, it could be for different reasons. It's maybe a big bill and there's some things in a bill we like, some things we don't. I know right now we're really looking at how it's addressing housing supply and regulations right now. So it's kind of keeping an eye on what they're doing with that.
Okay. And so that one is currently back in this is in a Senate committee, I assume.
Yes.
This is a bill that originated in the House, passed out of the House, and it's for a Senate committee right now. So now is the time to talk to your senator or even the committee chairman there if you feel strongly about this bill.
Yes, we highly encourage, since this is actually the last week for the crossover committee hearings, so the Senate bills that made it to the House bills that made it to the Senate, if they don't get out of committee, they're considered dead. So this is a time where we're really encouraging people to reach out to the committee, especially the chair, and say, hey, we want this bill heard, or we don't want this bill heard. We like to give them like, hey, please support the good bills, not just let's get rid of the bad bills.
Okay, well, so here example, the next one. This is House Bill 1335 regarding nonprofit hospitals.
Yeah.
MADVoters supports this bill. This is again in Senate, awaiting a Senate committee hearing. If you want them to hear this thing and pass it, now is the time to get a hold of your senators, particularly those that sit on which committee is that one in? Do you know?
Oh, I forget which one it's in. I know we definitely support it because it does increase nonprofit hospitals' accountability and patient awareness for financial assistance programs, which, knowing our healthcare system as we do, is definitely important. But the cool thing is, on our bill tracker, on that spreadsheet I mentioned, we actually have all the committees and the emails and phone numbers listed. So we try and make it as easy as possible so you can go and spend your Valentine's Day weekend sending emails or making phone calls.
That's what my wife wants to do this weekend. I don't know about everybody else.
Sounds like a great date night.
It could be. It could be the couple that politics to get. You know what? I don't have a rhyme. I'm just gonna let it go. So that one 1335. Support that. Contact your state senator there. Let them know that you support that. Now, on the other end of things, House Bill 1343.
Yeah.
This one we are not a fan of, at least part of it. And maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, we are not a fan of the part that grants police powers to the National Guard.
Yeah. Mike Braun does not need his own secret police. No. And now this one, I understand, is it got reassigned to a different committee.
Yes, I think it got moved. I think it was in Homeland Security, and it's been moved to Appropriations.
So again, it's another choke point. This is a potential place where we could snuff this bill out before it gets
Mhm.
a full hearing
Yeah.
in the Senate. Thankfully, our state Senate is a little more moderate than our state House. There are folks there who are reachable on issues like
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
So contact them. Now, another one that is awaiting a committee hearing here that we do not like. This is
Mhm.
House Bill 1423. We've been following this particular this bill, but even before this became a bill, there was a bill last year that sort of kicked this process off, mandating that Indianapolis look into their public school system and sort of facilitate more cooperation between IPS and the for-profit charters that
Mhm.
operate in the area. Now, 1423, I understand, would basically subsume the elected IPS board, put them underneath this new thing called the Indianapolis Public Education Corporation, which would be appointed by the mayor. And we know Joe Hogsett, this thing would be stocked with charter school supporters, education profiteers. So now I understand is again the time to contact your senators on this thing.
Yeah, I mean this bill, it's basically an IPS school board takeover. School boards are elected by the members of their community, and they should answer to those members. Having it going and being appointed by the mayor, that really takes just that accountability towards the community out of it.
It's anti-democratic.
Yeah.
It runs against everything I thought we were supposed to believe in this country. Now, let's move over to the other side, stuff that originated in the Senate and is now awaiting a hearing in the House.
Mhm.
We've got Senate Bill 8. Again, another one that MADVoters is not supporting. Um, Boy, you've got Senator Gary Byrne and Senator Chris Garton are some of the authors of this bill. It is the Legion of Doom in the Indiana State Senate wrote this one, and so it awaits a hearing in the House. What's this one about?
So SB 8, this basically threatens the financial independence of our public libraries. Um, so basically, it kind of would try and go after the budget a bit. I think there have been some updates that might make it so if it goes over budget, it has to be addressed, but it's still, it's an attack on our public libraries, and they should be funded. They should be accessible to everybody. They do so much for communities that we don't realize. So going after this is just, we definitely oppose it.
And this is part of the overarching Republican culture war on things like schools and libraries. They like to use this groomer trope about they say there's quote unquote pornography in the libraries when
Mhm.
really it's like, hey, here's a book that actually depicts queer people, and if you even acknowledge their existence, that is pornographic to some folks there on the far right. We can talk about maybe why they feel that way and if they're projecting, but
I don't want to think about how they get that thought process. I do know we've seen like Representative Tushka a couple of years ago when they're going after library books, trying to book ban, reading something from a book he considered inappropriate for children in front of children at the state house. So it's definitely interesting at times how their thought process works.
zooming out from Indiana a little bit, there's
We're not
Senator John
Florida,
Kennedy
so.
of Louisiana in the U.S. Senate a few years ago read some stuff again that was obviously not
Mhm.
intended for children, and
Yeah.
like, my guy, like, why are you reading this? I don't know. It's confusing. I think the far right is a psychosexual disaster, And that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, especially our librarians, they are trained, they are educated in how to process books and what is, uh, appropriate for different reading levels. And, that I have yet to meet one librarian that's going to go and put, um, I don't know, a Sarah J. Moss book in an elementary school. That's just not going to happen. So,
Yeah. Your average school librarian, your public librarian are trained professionals. They are versed in what is age appropriate, and
yeah.
I've had enough of the attacks on these fine folks who are really out there doing important work in our
Mhm.
society. Reading is fundamental. I recall from
Yes.
from my youth. Yes. So let's look at another one that originated in the Senate, and this is SB 85. Now, hey, look, that's a good one.
Yes. This one, it protects patients from aggressive medical debt collection practices. So it's definitely something we support. I believe Senator Fadi Kadora, this was his bill that he started. They've tried it previously to get it going. This has really made some traction. So we're really hoping that this will get a committee hearing and move on in the process.
And this is one of those that had bipartisan support, like you
Yeah.
said. Fadi Kadora was one of the authors, but as is Republican Senator Ed Charbonneau. So,
Yeah.
um, this one you maybe have good luck contacting your state house representative on this one, especially if they are on that committee. Let's also look at now this one. This is a bad one. This is a heinous bill, Senate Bill 182, that essentially would seek to erase trans people from legal existence in the state of Indiana.
Yeah. I mean, it's legal erasure of not only trans people, but non binary people here in Indiana.
Now, I understand. I want to say, I don't know if it was this week or the week before, that the Bureau of Motor Vehicles announced that they were no longer issuing driver's licenses with like non-binary markers, like effective immediately. So that must not be part of this bill.
I honestly don't always know what the BMV is up to. So, but regardless, the trans and non-binary Hoosiers, they exist. They are part of our community. They're part of our state, and just the constant attacks on them, it's not acceptable. It's not Hoosier. It's definitely not Hoosier hospitality.
And it's hard enough out there to in this world to
Mhm.
go through things when stuff is not necessarily set up and made for you. You don't need your state lawmakers getting involved in your business as well. It is enough. This is less than 1% of the population, most
Mhm.
likely. We talked about the special session in December and how these legislators are wasting our time and our tax dollars on culture war issues. This is one of them. Like, leave our trans friends and neighbors alone. Let them live as in their truth, and quit the attacks. I don't know what else to say about that other than tell your representatives that same thing, please.
Yeah, definitely. Even after the session, keep reaching out, letting your representatives know. I know we saw testimony this year of people going down saying, please stop bullying and attacking myself, my children, my loved ones, my friends. There were some testimonies that just personally brought me to tears. Because, like you said, we have other important things to be doing than attacking our neighbors.
And well, another thing along those lines, I guess, where all the testimony for the most part is coming in one direction, and damned if some of these Republican legislators will pay much attention. That is Senate Bill 236.
Mhm.
Now, this has to do with abortion medication. Also, would set up a Texas-style bounty system. Very concerning, and potentially deadly.
I mean, it definitely is. We have seen out of Texas and other states what happens when they do this. And I know I'm very curious to find out where they're going to come out with the $10,000. I believe that if someone can basically report someone for having or using abortion pills they access by mail. How are we going to pay for that? Because I believe the number is $10,000 that they would
Oh
receive.
no, it's worse. It's $100,000.
Oh, that updated. Last I knew it was 10,000. We can't cover Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, but we can come up with $100,000 for this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Indiana Republicans very, very concerned about fiscal responsibility. Yet, uh, where's this money going to come from? That very important question. I hadn't heard that asked before. Right? Like, it's bad enough that they're even talking about the concept of it, but let's
Mhm.
just engage in a little hypothetical. Like, if this thing does pass,
Yeah.
yeah, where's that money going to come from?
And I mean, that's just going to make people concerned. I mean, there are websites and things online that people can go to access for abortion care. But yeah, how is this going to work? Especially, some of these people are in other states that are doctors that are submitting this, or different countries. So how's this really going to work? That's kind of the logistics things that I don't quite understand. But then, yeah, where's this money going to come from? We can't fund Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. We couldn't repeal the sales tax on menstrual products, though it violates our state constitution and tax code. Like, what are we doing? It doesn't make sense. And just to, again, it's another attack on women's health care. It's another attack on Hoosiers. Indiana, we're already top 3 for maternal mortality, and with more reproductive health care centers and maternity wards closing in Indiana, it's very concerning.
Boy, they really want to be number one on that one, it seems like. That's something you don't want to be number one in.
I'd love to be number 50 on this one.
Yeah, instead of say voter turnout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's flip those on their head again, and that's on us. We've got to contact these folks, and if they don't go along with what we want, it's up on us to organize and vote them out.
Yeah.
So let's look at we've got a couple more that are awaiting a committee hearing, that are at this choke point. Again, this one very important. It's at a choke point. We could stop this thing here. So another one that affects Hoosiers' health, maybe not as directly, but this is an environmental deregulation one. We already suffer from terrible air and water quality here in Indiana. Senate Bill 277, which has crossed over into the House, is awaiting a committee hearing, would further allow polluters to just sort of do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's environmental deregulation bill. And like you said, we have some of the worst air and water quality in the country. And when we also look at data centers coming in and what those do to the environment, it's very concerning. My area, we had the LEAP project, which that pushback against all the entire political spectrum was actually very amazing to see. But this is definitely something, the environment does impact our health. And in fact, it impacts our community safety. I mean, just not having a clean air, clean water, just a clean environment, it has so many negative connotations that I don't fully understand why we want to continue to deregulate.
Well, their donors demand the ability to do whatever they want to make a buck, and if polluting makes them a buck, then they get their concierge legislators to shepherd these laws through for them. Last one that is waiting a committee hearing here, Senate Bill 285 would essentially criminalize homelessness. Another one, again, vulnerable people already in a tough spot. Let's make life even harder for them, right?
Yeah, having that fee, I think it's $500, having them enter the criminal justice system, which is already overwhelmed. And then when we're looking at some of the other bills that the state legislators wanting to do that was going to increase the population in our jails, it doesn't make sense. What makes sense is finding programs that actually work to address homelessness, to work on adding more affordable, available housing, but just criminalizing it and saying, well, they only get help if they go to jail. I've worked in that field. There are so many resources out there. We do not need to send someone to jail and give them a record to be able to address this issue.
And then that makes it even harder to get housing in the future. A lot of folks you don't want to rent to folks that have a criminal record.
Yeah, especially if for some reason something ends up turning into a felony, because when you have a misdemeanor, as if this continues to be an issue, and I'm talking in the grand scheme of things like DUIs, you might get a misdemeanor, but enough, it starts escalating to felonies. You can't get HUD housing if you have a felony. You can't even live with someone who is on HUD housing if you have a felony, unless something has changed that I'm not aware of. And this also impacts our veterans. We have unfortunately, a high level of veterans who are homeless, and I do not think people that have served should be criminalized because we're not taking care of them.
The fact that homeless veterans is a thing is an indictment on the state of our society, I believe.
Yeah.
So let's turn the corner here, and those are the things that are awaiting a committee hearing. Let's sort of look back at this past week and see where some of these high priority bills are at in the process. Now, Senate Bill 76 is the big immigration bill. This was
Mhm.
authored by State Senator Liz Brown, who is under pressure from the right flank of her party, from Attorney General Rokita, from
Mhm.
U.S. Senator Jim Banks, because she is not far right enough on immigration, or at least she wasn't last time. She's really trying to bone up her resume on being an anti-immigration monster.
Mhm.
Senate Bill 76 is her attempt to rectify that situation with those folks, it appears.
Yeah, this bill, SB 76, I mean, it does a lot. So this would mandate that Indiana law enforcement, public schools, universities, and local governments must cooperate with federal immigration authorities and agencies, which includes ICE. Otherwise, they're going to be sued for $10,000 per violation. It prohibits employers from hiring undocumented people. I don't know how that's going to impact. I know, like in the construction industry,
It's
that's
already against the law federally.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, and I do know, like in, for example, the construction industry, like they will hire people who might not have the proper documentation. But yeah, I mean, this isn't going to do anything except create chaos within our communities. Now, the House did pass it 61-20 on Thursday. So this is when I mentioned it's going back to the Senate for concurrence. So basically, the Senate's going to decide, are we okay with the changes that were made to this? So I really encourage people to reach out to their senators to give their opinions on this. Maybe it's a long shot, but maybe we could still take out some of the things and try and make it maybe potentially not as bad a bill.
I guess I just want to say here that at this point that this is just about our last chance to stop this thing.
I mean, pretty much. So if it goes back to concurrence and the Senate basically says, yeah, we're okay with this, it's going to go to Braun. If they don't agree with it, then that's when we go to the conference, and it will have two House members and two senators. They will start with a member from each party. Now, usually, pretty much all the time, the Democrats get kicked out. So then it's two Republican senators and two Republican representatives that are trying to hash out the bill. Now, that's if they don't agree on the concurrence.
Yeah, no, this bill's not extreme enough. Yeah, that's kind of where this thing is going. Unfortunately, this one is a particularly bad bill.
Yeah.
Over here, listen, I got a comment here over on Facebook where Bryson Minton, chair of the Hancock County High School Democrats, says we completely condemn this bill, as they should. And Bryson, thank you for getting involved early. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good to see the young folks getting involved in politics now. It is your future, you know. And when I was that age, I think a lot of folks ignored politics. It was like something that other people did. You can't do that anymore. So, Bryson, thank you.
Yeah, Bryson, thank you so much. And actually, if I can quickly give a shout out to all the Hoosier high schoolers and kids that are getting involved. I know I continue to see countless ICE protests, students walking out
Mm-hmm.
of high schools. I know I saw one in my hometown, which the reception from it, I was so impressed with. So just a shout out to all the young people that are really getting involved.
Yeah, you keep seeing these all over the state. It started a couple weeks ago, and I thought, okay, well, that was it. But we're I think into our third week of these anti-ICE protests, and I hope they continue until ICE goes away.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
um,
it's hitting India. It's happened in Lafayette. I saw Mishawaka, Warsaw, Indiana. Like it's all over and in places you might not expect. So, I think we definitely should support these kids and their right to peacefully protest.
100%. Citizenship extends to the children as well, and we you might not be able to vote yet, all of them, but you're still a citizen, a person with a voice, and you should use it.
Yep.
Let us look at, well, hey, another one that kind of involves schools here. We talked about
Yep.
1423 briefly already. That was the Indianapolis public school bill. This one did get transferred. It passed the education committee on Thursday, but then got reassigned to
Mm-hmm.
appropriations.
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier, it greatly reduces the decision-making power of IPS's elected school board, and it transfers it, as you said, to an all-appointed board that's going to be influenced by a lot of pro-charter interests. And again, this is just a taxation without representation, and it adds another costly layer of bureaucracy. Like we always hear them complain about, there's another layer, another step, and we're actively adding it now. So this kind of doesn't make sense.
Okay, and then this is another one that we had kind of mentioned in passing already. This was the National Guard, the militarized police bill, House Bill 1343. Again, this past week, this passed out of Homeland Security, but
Yes.
it is not going to a full to the full House yet, or sorry, to the full Senate yet. It is has been reassigned to appropriations.
Yes, and as we discussed, I mean, it's a broad bill and it's out of our normal scope, but we do oppose Section 5, which would grant police powers to the National Guard. I mean, this expands police powers, raises concerns about the militarization of the police, and just encroachment of civil liberty. So it's definitely very concerning for us.
And perhaps the most concerning thing about it is that the governor could send this militarized police force anywhere in the state without consulting with local leaders.
Yeah, and things are already not being consulted. I believe it was Carmel. I heard that ICE is going to be in that area, and it sounded like the locals weren't even aware of it. So it's concerning.
No, it's a case of the feds, coming in and they're renting office space, and they don't consult with the local leaders on that. They're going to say, well, look, we're just renting office space. We don't need to consult with you on that. But yes, very very concerning that they're coming here to Central Indiana. ICE has been around, not necessarily with the large footprint that you'd see like they had in Minneapolis or in
Yeah.
Chicago previously, but they're around, and it looks like they're increasing their presence. So very concerning. Keep up those protests in the high schools. Keep up those protests everywhere. Get your whistles.
Yeah, learn about your rights. Learn about what you can do, how to support your local communities and mutual aid. That's maybe one of the glass half full things I've seen is how many people want to get engaged and want to be supportive, especially here in Indiana.
Yes. So another one here this past week that passed out of committee. This one is House Bill 1176, passed out of the Senate Appropriations Committee.
Mm-hmm.
It is now eligible for a full Senate vote. This is another one that has to do with privatizing public schools.
Mm-hmm. Creates an additional pathway to convert existing public schools into charter schools.
As if we didn't need more, they've been, slowly whittling away at public education for a couple decades now at the Statehouse, and this is just another one to make it even easier. So let's turn to House Bill 1002. Now, this one was one that MADVoters did not necessarily take a position on. This was the House Republicans' #2 priority bill. And I understand from the notes that this one actually seems to be shaping up to be a pretty decent bill. This one passed out of committee and is eligible for a full Senate vote.
Yeah, again, like I said earlier, there are bills that we watch because we don't know what's going to happen with them. But this one, it seeks to enhance customer financial stability, improve utility accountability, and restructure utilities' rate making processes. So the bill proposes implementing performance based rate marketing, also known as PBR, where the state would reward or penalize utilities based on their performance and affordability. So low income, it also has low income financial assistance programs, moratorium for electricity shutoffs during hot weather. And the more controversial levelized billing, which can reduce spikes in billing costs, can leave customers with a very single high bill to cover discrepancies. So there's actually some really good things in this bill that are going to help with utilities. So it is shaping up to be a good bill. So that has passed out of committee and it is eligible for a vote in the Senate. So this is one. Definitely reach out to your senators and let them know what you think about this bill.
All right, so that covers this past week. Now let's look ahead, and I understand. I don't know if we mentioned this at the top. You said there's only like 2 weeks left in the session, basically.
Yep, we're looking at about 2 weeks. So this upcoming week, February 16th to the 19th, is when those bills in committee need to make it through. They're looking at end of February. So I think 27th is ideally the last day they want to have anything happen. So we're really kind of uh, it's crunch time.
Yeah. So, to that end, let's look at the coming week. Now, this one, Senate Bill 2, is sort of the mechanism by which to get this thing called Senate Joint Resolution 1 onto the ballot for November. That would be a constitutional amendment that voters have to approve. It has to do with bail. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. So SB to SJR1, those are heading for House amendments and a potential House vote next week. Like you said, this is a constitutional amendment that is going to be up to Hoosiers. So we're going to encourage you to learn more about it. Um, but yeah, just to sum up, I believe that it's some in some cases people will not get bail, which that already kind of happens. And the thing about bail is just making someone pay it doesn't mean they're going to show up in court. It actually is a
Yeah.
bigger hindrance.
So I understand that it is in the state constitution currently as written that bail cannot be denied. You can't hold
Mhm.
somebody without bail. Now you can set it exorbitantly high and do things like that, but this one would make it so you in fact can hold people without bail. Is that
Yeah,
my
I believe it.
understanding?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember this bill. So I don't want to get too in the weeds about it. But I think it might be limited to certain circumstances, but still, bail should, in most cases, be offered. Again, there are some situations where it's not. Those are usually the higher crime, your F1s. So that's already kind of set up. So this one kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, especially if it's going to violate our Constitution. Um, so yeah, it's just something to be aware of.
We'll keep an eye on that one. And I guess I don't know how it's a nice thing, but the fact that this is a constitutional amendment means at the end of this session here, the story's not over on this
No.
bill. Hoosiers will have the final say in November on this if it makes it through.
Yeah, and I hope they spend the time like they did during the redistricting to educate themselves over what it actually is going to mean, because they may come up with a catchy line that might make Hoosier um, that might make Hoosiers think this is beneficial. But I really hope Hoosiers take the time to learn more about it and maybe learn more about bails in the criminal justice system.
It is a convoluted mess, and yeah, certainly you have to think that the private prison industry would just anything that will help them keep more people incarcerated than that benefits them. So there's always a financial aspect to all of this stuff, it seems.
Yeah, and we could have an entire 3-hour discussion about that. But we definitely have a few more bills we need to cover, especially I think our next one.
Yeah, let's look at that one. That's Senate Bill 12, and this one is up for debate in the House and a potential vote this week. This one would ban ranked choice voting, which is already not a thing anywhere in Indiana.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy that they want to ban something we don't have, though. I think it might actually they do use ranked choice voting in some of the delegate aspects.
It was used in the Republican convention last
Yeah.
time around. Ironically, I want to say that, well, actually, I don't want to say because I can't verify that. So I'm not going to say it had anything to do with Beckwith's selection as lieutenant governor, but I know that yes, that was used at the Republican convention. And ranked choice voting has proved successful. It is not just a, quote unquote blue state thing. I know if you look at this last November, where Zoran Mamdani was elected mayor of New York City, they use ranked choice voting there. There are some other jurisdictions that use ranked choice voting to much success, but they also use it in very red Alaska.
I was just gonna say Alaska uses it.
And the nice thing about ranked choice voting is it can, one, have a moderating influence. It's a way to sort of get a consensus candidate instead of a more extreme person. Find somebody that's acceptable to a broader segment of the population. But also, my God, if we ever want to break apart the two-party system, ranked choice voting across the board, I think, is going to be the way to do it.
Yeah, to dealing with that two choice party system, that's going to take a little bit of effort, but getting rid of this is definitely going to make it harder. But yeah, just getting rid of something that we don't even have preemptively, like, it doesn't make sense. And like you said earlier, we have a shortened session where we have things that are actually a priority. Uh, work on my utilities. Don't work on this.
Right, exactly. This is just right along those lines with the redistricting, with some of these culture war issues where they're taking aim at a small segment of the population. This is, taking legislators' time in committee, taking time on the floor to debate this thing when they could definitely be using that for something that, actually affects Hoosiers' day-to-day lives
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
For example, something like Senate Bill 91, this is a very important public health measure meant to renew a program that has been very successful in this state for the last decade.
Yeah, SB 91, this would extend Indiana's syringe exchange program, which originally was supposed to be in the bill for 10 years. They've amended it to 2, which it has helped reduce on the spread of HIV and hepatitis in Indiana. And without this extension, the program's going to expire. So it's up for House amendments and potential House vote next week. This was started, if everyone remembers, back when Mike Pence was governor, Scott County, with the crisis with HIV rates. And this program, especially across the state, has actually been very effective in reducing HIV, hepatitis, giving people resources, even assisting in getting into rehab for drug use. Sometimes these facilities are the first step people get in finding sobriety, which is great instead of sending them to jail.
Well, right, and a lot of folks on the right, especially the Christian nationalist right, they like to view the drug addiction as like a moral failing, and they don't want to help people. They're like, well, fine, let them OD and die, or okay, well, but if you let people get AIDS or hepatitis, that doesn't necessarily stay contained to that individual, right? This is how you get major public health outbreaks like the one in Scott County. When you treat public health issues as moral failings, it winds up affecting the broader population at large.
Yeah, and I know in some areas they virtually got their new cases of HIV down to 0. But if you're going to get rid of these, then that means everything is going to spike up again because people don't have these resources. And in a state where our healthcare system is already struggling, adding in these barriers when this is actually a very low cost, effective measure that has proven since it came into existence to help reduce these issues, it just doesn't make sense on a decency, on a financial, on a health aspect. So definitely contact your House representatives and encourage them to put like really good amendments in, take out the bad ones, and pass this, because as Hoosiers with our healthcare, we definitely need this.
So did I understand correctly that this bill was originally intended to extend this program for another 10 years, and it's been amended to only extend it for 2 years?
Yes.
So hopefully this thing passes, but we're going to have to do this again in 2 years.
Potentially. I mean, if it's up for more amendments, then potentially they could put it back in to put it for 10 years, which would be fantastic, because we don't want to be doing this every 2 years. It's kind of like the shutdowns at the federal level. Do we want to keep doing this every 6 to 12 months? I would rather just fund it and be done with it.
Yeah, that's not a very good way to run a government. And, to that same effect, we were just talking about, wasting our time. Well,
Mhm.
we could waste our time and our resources and our taxpayer dollars debating this again when we know it's effective in 2 years, or we could fund this thing fully for 10 years and focus on other things that come up in that time.
Yeah.
So let us move on to Senate Bill 1. Now, we talked about House Bill 1001 and
Mhm.
1002, and those were the House Republicans' priority bills. The Senate Republicans only had one priority bill, and it is this big omnibus mess that they say is aimed to take on waste, fraud, and abuse.
Mhm.
Those key words, those talking points in government. They say that the government is riddled with fraud and people are taking advantage of social programs, and this is meant to cut down on that. What is this bill really going to do if it goes through?
So what SB1 would do is it would impose harsh administrative burdens on Medicaid and SNAP recipients. It's going to expand the harms of the one big beautiful bill. And it's actually going to cost the state significant money, and cover fewer people's healthcare and food access, especially those who are pursuing education, low income parents, and seniors and immigrants. So there is a committee hearing on Monday afternoon, but there will not be any public testimony. So if you have comments, definitely reach out to the committee via email, via messages, and at least try and get your voice heard that way.
And this is in House committee now, so you want to contact your representatives for this one. So
Mhm.
now hold up. This thing is meant to root out waste, fraud, and abuse and theoretically save the state money, but you said it's actually going to wind up costing the state money. How? Why? What?
So when you're adding in that bureaucratic administrative burden, you're going to have to, I believe one of the things was some of the renewals, instead of a year, it's going to be 6 months. So people could potentially get knocked off that should be on it. But just putting in all that time, information, the bureaucracy side of things, it's going to cost us a lot more money than just saying, hey, cool, we're done, we're good, let's move on. But yeah, and it's also, I believe one of the stipulations for being on Medicaid was to be in school. I believe they took that away, or at least that was consideration. So you can't say, "Hey, I need health insurance because I'm in school trying to better my life, get educated, get a better job." That I think is one of the things that's been taken away.
Yes, and that is again your Legion of Doom in the state Senate authoring this bill, basically uh saying, well, okay, that's fine, but tough shit. Is how I understand it. Um and yeah, like you said, this it would be more effective. We talk about this with things like housing first policies too, where it's just cheaper and more effective and better for society at large to give people the thing. Means
Mhm.
testing be damned, and that's on the user end, but on the state end, on the bureaucracy end, doing the means testing
Yeah.
is inefficient and costs more money.
Well, and also think about like for our seniors, if you're having to renew things more than once a year, they might not have access to the technology. They might not understand that. They might not have the support to help them. So we might have people that do qualify and should be on these programs that are getting kicked off. And that's going to put even more of a burden trying to get them back on, help them get support in the meantime. So it doesn't really address any of the concerns that they're bringing up. It's actually just going to be creating more issues.
That is unfortunate, and it really just it goes to the root of, I think, a lot of the problems here in the Indiana Statehouse under
Yeah.
supermajority leadership for the last 20 years. They're focused on this culture war stuff, and they blame individuals for things that could be handled upstream better
Mhm.
and more efficiently, but they don't want to do that for
Yeah.
whatever reason. Um, we talked briefly about House Bill 1002 before one of the House priority bills. That was the electric utilities one.
Mhm.
There is a that is scheduled for the Senate on Monday. Yes.
Yep. Yep, that one's scheduled. The one we discussed earlier, that's scheduled on Monday. The one that's shaping up to be an okay bill, pretty good one. But yeah.
Right, and then another one we had mentioned previously, House Bill 1176, that
Mhm.
1176. Sorry, that was the
Charter
a
school.
charter school bill making things easier for them. That also has a is on the Senate scheduled Monday. Is it for the full Senate there to
Yes.
vote on both of these bills?
Yes. And so
Okay,
are the
so
next two that are coming up.
again, contact your senator. That information, you don't know who your senator is, right there on madvoters.org for
Yep.
you to find out. A couple. So this has not been all bad news again this
No.
week. Um, it's easy to focus on that stuff, and it's important that we focus on that stuff because there's a sense of urgency to defeat those bad bills, but there are some good bills, and House Bill 1036 and 1037 are also on Monday's Senate schedule. Those have to do with oversight of the Department of Child Services.
Yep.
It's 1036, and I said 1037.
1307.
It's 1307. I always get those two mixed up because they're right there next to each other. So what are these about?
I mean, these are just two DCS oversight bills. The DCS, they do a lot of good work, but there's some things that we could make positive changes on. So these are just two bills that we've seen that could make a lot of positive impact. So we're really encouraging people to contact before Monday to reach out as it's on their schedule.
And these are both a pair of bipartisan bills that have support
Yes.
from across the aisle that
Mhm.
I think folks can get on board with no matter where their political leanings are. We want DCS to do their job well and actually help kids
Mhm.
because that's what they're there for.
Oh yeah, they're the and I know you always hear stories, but so many people in there, they just need the support. The employees just need that help. So if we can find good legislation to help support those things, we definitely want people to reach out.
And well, just speaking to everything we've talked about today, if we handled things upstream, maybe we wouldn't need DCS to be involved downstream. But if they have to get involved, we want them to be, supported by good state law.
Mhm.
Last bill, another one, sort of involving the way we care for our kids here at this state. House Bill 1177.
Mhm.
This one is scheduled for a Senate committee hearing on Tuesday. What is this one about?
So this one would incentivize businesses to provide childcare through tax credits. And in Indiana, we know that we are struggling with our childcare right now, with access, with affordability. This is a great bill. So definitely reach out to the Senate committee before Tuesday and let them know, like, hey, let's move this forward. It's beneficial to Hoosiers.
Yes, yes. That's what you're here for, guys. Do
Like
things
low
that are beneficial to Hoosiers, right?
it's like low
Um,
hanging fruit. Come on.
exactly. So I guess that covers the bills that we are looking at for this coming week. Let's
Yeah.
just sort of look ahead past this
Mhm.
week and into the last week of February. Like we said, there's only about 2 weeks left here. What are we looking at as we get toward the end of session?
Yeah. So just to recap, that committee bills they have to be heard this week, and once otherwise it's considered dead. But once a bill passes out of committee, it is eligible for amendments and passages in the full chamber. So many bills have already reached this stage, but as we discussed, some of those haven't. So if it's a good bill, bad bill still in committee, reach out. The state house leaders have set Tuesday, February 24th as the crossover voting deadline. So we're really coming up on that, and not all committees meet every day. If a bill was amended during crossover, the originating chamber then votes on whether or not to accept those changes. So this is known as concurrence. If no changes were made, then the bill skips the step and it's eligible to be signed in law by the governor. The projected deadline for the legislative session is Friday, February 27th. So they are really wanting to just get this stuff in as full as possible. And we're going to talk more about conference committees coming up. But yeah, so that's kind of, we're kind of at that deadline to be reaching out to your legislators to encourage them to either support good bills or to reject bad bills.
And really, I don't know, maybe I'm just inferring this. You said the 24th would be the last day for like potential crossovers out of committee.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that if things get out on the 24th, that only leaves them a couple days to go through the whole rest of the process. So really, if things are going to cross, or you really think that they'd want to have that done by the end of this coming week?
I mean, you would think
they're really pushing up against the deadline.
Yeah, they're going to be pushing up against it because I believe it's the 24th. That I think the 24th or 25th is going to be the second reading deadline, and then the third reading is I think like around the 26th. So they're not giving themselves a lot of time to discuss the amendments before they keep moving them forward before the end of the session. So that's definitely concerning, especially if we hear them say that, well, this is a bad bill, this maybe isn't the best. Then why are we moving it forward if we know it's not where we need it to be? I'd rather take another year to really work out the kinks. But yeah,
that comes up more often than you'd think, doesn't it?
It does. It does. But this is just where Hoosiers definitely reach out, kind of give your takes, your opinions, especially if it's a really good bill that we should support. We always hear that. We always hear people say, well, I reached out about the bad bill. Reach out about the good stuff because we want to really encourage them to do the right thing. And they should.
They hear about the bad bills all the time. It's occasionally nice to call your representatives and say, hey, good job when they do a good thing.
Give them a cookie.
Amanda, just a couple minutes here. One last pitch for folks to go to MADVoters.org, if you will.
Yeah, so MADVoters, if you're interested in learning more about the bills or about us, check out MADVoters.org. On our website, we have our bill tracker, which is the best place for updates and calls to action. We update it pretty regularly, especially sometimes when we're watching the session. We have some dedicated volunteers watching every minute, which you can actually watch the sessions on iga.in.gov. But the session, again, is even shorter than normal, so our opportunity is really wrapping up. So use madvoters.org and our bill tracker to really get your opinions out there, your takes, with finding the emails, the committees, the phone numbers of everyone involved. And our bill tracker gives you that contact information, like I just said, on who to call. And if you are kind of nervous about who to contact or you've never called before, this weekend's the best time because no one should answer the phone. Just leave a voicemail.
And at madvoters.org, there are things like scripts so to sort of help you gather your thoughts so you can most effectively speak to your representatives.
Yes, on there we have scripts that you can use, and it can be as simple as I support or don't support this bill. We also have resources to help people who have never testified if there's an opportunity to testify or give public comment, because it can be really scary doing that. And we just want to support Hoosiers in any way that they want to feel empowered to reach out and be more active in the legislative process.
Absolutely. And that's democracy for you, right? It's messy, but if we don't engage with it, you lose it. This is not a spectator sport. It's something we all have to participate in. And I think it's become more clear and more stark over these last several years that we can't take these things for granted. So, Amanda, thank you for all the work you do with Mad Voters, and thanks to everybody else at Mad Voters for all the work they do. I couldn't do what I do without you, and you really provide an invaluable service to all Hoosiers, and just keep up the great work, you guys.
Yeah, and we want to actually thank all Hoosiers because you just mentioned this isn't a spectator sport, and as we saw with redistricting and Hoosiers, when we start using our voices because it's 24/7, we can actually make some amazing change. So just kind of carry that momentum as we go through the rest of the session into the election year. We'll talk about all that later. But no, and Scott, thank you for having us on. We love different avenues to get this information out and helping support people that want to make Hoosiers just more activated and engaged. So thank you. And to anyone else that's doing similar activity out there.
Thank you. And we will be back next weekend with another one of these. We'll look at this week and then talk about the final week of the session at that time. But until then, on behalf of my guest today, Amanda Eldridge, I am Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.